Hey, what is going on, everybody? You got Jacob coming at you with a live today. We are going live across a few places. Originally, I just intended to do this in my primary group, the Seven Figure Insiders community. But as I was about to go live, I figured some of the folks in our various customer groups could get some value from this as well. So we're going live across a few other communities as well. Wherever you are, if you're in the Seven Figure Insiders, if you're watching from SAA, if you're watching from SAI, if you're watching in the Rolodex group, wherever you're watching from, get engaged and drop some comments and drop some hearts and whatever you want. Anything, drop it down below. If you've got questions and stuff, drop them down below and I'll do my best to circle back and field them at the end. I think it'd be a good idea to get an early jump on Q3 coming up. Q2 coming up rather than waiting for it to be here. We get 2 weeks in early, and I wanted to talk about two things in particular. One, having a bit of a look back at Q1, and I want to do this in two ways. I want to give you some things to think about when you're reflecting on what's happened this year so far. Give you some questions to prompt what to look at. I want to share with you a little bit about what we've done in Q1, because I think we underestimate how much we can get done. And we've had a really, really productive first quarter, and hopefully sharing some of that stuff will give you a bit of inspo in terms of what's possible in a relatively short period of time, 10 weeks or so it's been. And then we'll pivot to Q2, and I want to talk you through what you should be doing, I guess, today to kind of draw a line in the sand and look forward. And then a couple of tips for people, a bit of an action plan for people who might be completely bogged down in the mud and are stuck and are spinning their wheels and all that kind of stuff, okay? And then we'll wrap it up with two things. One is I want to do a bit of a chat on a concept that I've had a bit of I've thought about a little bit lately, which is this concept of focus versus clarity and how I think they kind of play into each other, which might be helpful to you. And then we'll bring it all together with a bit of a Q&A at the end. I apologize for my voice. I've literally been on the phone nearly like the last 2 days consistently, and I have also come down with a bit of a sore throat. So it's on its way out. So I'll do my best to keep it in check for you all. But yeah, be sure to smash the comments and the engagement buttons and all that kind of stuff as we're going through this, and I'm sure you will get something out of it. Awesome. Alrighty. Cool. Looks like I got a few familiar names. I can see some of you in the comments here. What I might actually do real quick is just pull this up on Facebook as well, so that I can see everybody. Alrighty. Cool. All right. Awesome. Cool. Appreciate you all hopping on. Andre, Flip, Eric, McCool, Daisy, Todd, Ted, Brett. These are just a few names I can see. Someone's asked, how often do you go live? It's my first time seeing you live. I don't have a consistent schedule. It's just when time permits. And, it's if there's something in particular, I don't go live for the sake of going live, put it that way. It's when there's something in particular I want to cover off. And so with all that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly pull up these slides. How to prepare now, it's not a good start, to crush Q2 2021. Okay. Awesome. All right, so I got my slides over here. Cool. So as I quickly said, bit of an agenda. I want to do a bit of a review of Q1. I want to give you some prompts and some questions and some things to think about as you're looking back on the 10 weeks 2.5, I guess, coming up on 3 months that has been of this year, so that you know what to reflect on and you can think about what worked, what didn't work, what do I need to improve on, all those kind of things. These are some questions that I typically reflect on. If I've got the time, I'll write some stuff down. Otherwise, I'll just do it as a bit of a mental exercise. I want to share with you some of the stuff we knocked out of the way in Q1, just so you guys can see, I guess, what is possible in a quarter. We've had a pretty busy one. I may pull the whiteboard up and draw some stuff to give you guys a bit of a visual image of it if we get there. I'll share some takeaways as well, some lessons from our first quarter, that might spur some ideas for you. Then we'll get into Q2, and I want to talk about what you should be looking at in terms of planning for that. I want to give some tips for people who are completely stuck in the mud, and then we'll get down to this focus and clarity kind of thing that I want to talk about, and we'll wrap it up with the Q&A. Okay, Ted, yes, I can see your comments. Okay, cool. So reviewing Q1. Here's some things that I want you to think about, and I would encourage you between now and the end of the month to take an hour, grab a cup of tea, grab a cup of wine, whatever it is that you're into. A cup of wine, a glass of wine, whatever it is that you're into, and try and answer questions like this, or some variation of them. Okay, first things first. What were your goals? Right? Like what did you actually want to get done? Now, these may be ones that you actually wrote out and planned for, or they could have just been things that you thought about that you knew you were ultimately wanting to work towards. Okay. Whichever. So a big overarching goal for us in Q1 was I wanted to really build out a much more robust product suite and have a very, very clear path since we brought in the brand in December. So in December, we moved from being just focused on affiliate marketing to being focused on information marketing more generally. So with that shift in brand, I needed to move pretty quickly to build out our offer stack to match that, right? Because there wasn't much point in expanding the scope of content to include all this other stuff about info marketing and coaching and consulting and all that kind of jazz if we didn't have a monetization path for it. So that was the big overarching goal post the rebrand in December, was how do we broaden that base of products and the overall value ladder in order to accommodate the rebrand. So that was our big one. So that's what I would start with is what did you actually want to achieve, right? And it could be specific, it may not be. I know a lot of people live in this kind of perfect world where they feel like everyone's got these goals that they're crystal clear on. It's not really the reality of it. Most people are so fucking busy with this stuff that they don't really have the time to do a lot of that. And I would say I fall into that boat. I don't write down like these are the exact things that I want to get done, but I have a good idea of where we're heading. And then in contrast to that, what did you actually achieve in the first 3 months? Okay. And this is a question that takes some time to actually think about, because when you ask yourself this, there's going to be an initial reaction where you're going to go, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 things, but then sit down and especially early on, because you want to, you really want to recognize your wins. You want to recognize those things that you have done. And when I say, what have you achieved? This doesn't necessarily have to just be like, I made X dollars, right? Or we rolled out this thing or these big things. Like these could be little things. If you had a realization or a perspective change on something that is going to serve you really, really well into the future, that's an achievement, right? Honestly, some of the biggest hurdles that you're going to have to overcome are shit that's going on up here that's holding you back. So if you disregard the achievements that are simply like perspective changes, you're selling yourself short. Okay. Honestly, early days, that is a significant chunk of the battle, is unwinding the mess that we create in our own heads in terms of how we overcomplicate things, the limitations we place on ourselves, the scarcity mindset that we adopt around how much opportunity is actually out there. So if you've had perspective changes, that is 100% an achievement. And it's honestly, they're some of the biggest achievements that you're going to have early on, because that's what's going to shape your thinking long-term. Okay. But then more practically as well, like what have you achieved, right? If it was consistent implementation of your daily action plan for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, if you took on a new client, if you rolled out a new program, if you got really positive feedback on something, whatever it is, like what are all the achievements? I want you to write them down, because when you do that, you're going to realize how much, cool shit you've done in the last 3 months, when on the surface, you might just sit there and go, oh, I haven't done that much. Okay. And this is going to help fuel your confidence moving into the new quarter. Okay. So then once you've written those things out, what you can start reflecting on is, well, what went well? And this is where you really need to be honest with yourself, right? Like, it's very easy to sit there and go, oh, everything went well. It was perfect. It was fucking great, blah, 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 blah. But be honest, like, what went well within reason, right? Like, if you started in January with your online business stuff and you had some grand delusions of hitting $100,000 a month by March, and then you're going, well, nothing went well because I didn't fucking hit $100,000 a month, then that's insane. But within reason, what went well? What do you feel went well? And then on the flip side, what didn't go well? What did you struggle with? Okay. And again, these can be tangible things, or they could be intangible things going on up here. Like, what did you struggle with mentally? What did you notice popping up? Okay. And what you're gonna realize is, as you get further and further into this game, one of your biggest assets is going to be your ability to self-reflect and be self-aware. That is, when I think about back in 2017, when I kicked this all off, I didn't really have any concept of what that meant, nor did I ever do it. I was just working and going a million miles an hour to try and stay afloat in my job. And I would never take a minute to stop and think, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Who am I? All that kind of shit. So a lot of these questions are going to require you to enhance your kind of self-reflection, okay? So think about those two, what went well, what didn't go well, okay? You could, start writing these down while I'm talking about them. It's a really, really powerful exercise. With that then said, looking at, what were your goals, what did you actually achieve, what went well, and then what didn't go well, let's go one layer deeper. What do you feel stopped you from hitting those goals or not achieving certain things? What do you feel like the barriers were? Okay. And this is another point where you're going to have to be very, very, true and honest with yourself, because if your initial reaction is to write down what stopped me from hitting my goals, and you're deflecting that all off to someone else, my mentor didn't show me how to do this, and my partner wasn't supportive, and my job was really busy, and I was tired. And like, if your initial reaction as to why you didn't hit your goals is to deflect onto everybody else, then that's a problem. Okay. That's a problem. That's not to say you can't recognize that there is things out of your control. Things happen. It's your job to figure out how you react to those. But, honestly, take some responsibility and say, there's going to be things in here that I didn't do. I didn't make time. I wasn't dedicated enough. I wasn't consistent enough. I didn't ask questions, right? I didn't pull the trigger on an investment that I know I probably should have, right? Brett says he was a scared, lazy prick. That's the type of self-honesty you need, right? That will spur you. When you can honestly say that about yourself, it'll it's pretty powerful that you've had that kind of reflection. And then kind of a bonus question, right? Because naturally what we do is we set these goals and stuff and then go, well, I didn't hit them. And usually what we'll do is we'll look at that first thing and go, well, what stopped me from hitting them? And that's good. You need to do that. But another layer to consider is, did I fuck up initially in setting the goals? Like, were the goals just stupid and they were never going to be achieved? And I've just set myself up for failure. So I want you to reflect on both levels. Did you what happened in the 3 months, but then also how it kind of started? Did you set things off on the wrong foot with goals that just weren't realistic in any way, or were just never going to happen? Okay, so there's a couple of things to seriously think about. If you want to screenshot this or whatever, I would highly encourage you to actually go through and answer these questions. You'll be quite an insightful exercise. Cool. So on that, and if you guys want to drop these in the comments as I'm kind of talking about them, I'd be interested to read some of them as well. People are saying self-awareness is so important, consistency, 100%. So consistency is going to be a massive one for a lot of people. And what I'd encourage, I can't see who that is. It just says Facebook user. Teresa. Consistency. So, there's probably a reason why you weren't consistent. So that's where you then need to go, okay, well, if that was the big thing, was I didn't show up every day and get done what I needed to, right? Rather than just going, okay, I'm going to be more consistent. Try and reflect and go, well, what actually stopped me from being consistent? Because there's going to be something like deeper down. There's going to be either, uncertainty in the process, maybe something going on up here, reservations around what you're selling, not being able to go all in on the strategy. It doesn't fit your situation. It could be anything, right? So I would encourage you to go one layer deeper than that and say, okay, well, why wasn't I consistent? Because that's going to really, really reveal the true cause. And then when you can fix that, the consistency can come. Okay. Three lives. Started using Facebook daily instead of monthly. That's good, Brett, if that's what you're wanting to do. Ted, I was taking on too many things. I stopped halfway working on 3 other tasks. Yep. I'm going to talk about that, Ted. I'm failing to take action. I'm trying to see whose comment that is. Can't see that one coming through. Someone said, I'm failing to take action. I keep learning, but can't mentally. But can mentally feel like I can take action. So again, you need to reflect on, well, what's stopping you from pulling the trigger? Where's the uncertainty coming from? And you need to be really, really practical about that stuff. Like, look at where are you coming up short? What's that like one little nagging thing that's stopping you from hitting go on a post, on a video, on a funnel, on an ad, on a whatever? Like, what, just before you go to hit go, like, what's that little thing that pops up? That's going to be the real cause, and that's what you need to fix. Try to give value and practice copywriting skills to figure out my voice in this space. That's good, man. One of the biggest tips I could give you around improving your copy and giving value is getting in the head of your prospects, and in one area in particular. Okay, this is pretty powerful. I'm talking to Brett in relation to his comment, but I'm talking to everybody as well. What are there? So think about your product, right? Because ultimately that's what you're building towards with the giving value and getting better at copy. Think about your product. Think about the problems that it solves on any level. And then think about what are the present pains and problems of your people, right? And become very, very good at identifying those problems, one, and two, articulating how that shit manifests in the real world. Okay? Those two things, being able to identify people's problems clearly of, they feel alone, they don't feel like they've got support around them. They're spending too long writing content. They're spending too long on Messenger. They're not launching their funnels. Like whatever the pain or the problem is, become really good at identifying those. And it's really easy to find them because you just look at what people are talking about. Like, look in this thread. This tells you what people struggle with, right? Like, people struggle with consistency. People struggle with trying to do too many things. People struggle with, improving on how they give value and copy. Lack of consistency. Look at conversations happening online like this, and it's going to tell you the present pains and problems that people are troubling people. That's your first layer. And then the second layer to really, really become strong at, which is where a lot of people miss the boat, is describing in your copy how that manifests in the real world. Okay. So if I'm trying to, so one of the things we work on in our elite coaching program is helping people reduce the amount of time that they're spending in their sales process by elevating the other elements of their business, making their offer have way more teeth and improving their content. And what that means is you spend less time selling. Okay. So if I'm trying to talk to people who are suffering from that, AKA they're spending way too fucking long in their sales process on calls in Messenger, whatever it may be, the surface level thing that I want to call out is, are you spending too long in Messenger? That's like the surface level problem. And that'll get some people because it'll pique their interest. But what's really going to ram home that this is relevant to them is accurately describing how that manifests, right? So you'd say, let me know if this sounds familiar, right? Let me know if it sounds familiar. You fire up your Messenger, you fire up your phone, there's a ton of new messages. Deep down inside, you know that most of those people aren't going to buy. They're going to waste your time. They're going to ask a ton of questions that as soon as you raise the dollar sign, they're going to run away. Some of them may even try to get a free call out of you, and it's going to take up more time. Start describing that problem in the real world. Your fingers are fucking red raw from typing responses back and forth. You're too afraid to draw a line in the sand in the conversation out of fear of losing the lead, losing the sale. Like, describing that real world situation is going to make this stuff like stick in people's minds way more. Okay. That's just a tangent in terms of Brett talking about improving his copy. Daisy says, yes, lack of consistency, not putting in the time to do all of the daily action plans because I get caught up in using my time and reaching out to people only, or only posting comments on people's profiles. Yeah, so it's got to be a balance across your activities, Daisy, for sure. Someone said, what was the biggest challenge for you during your online journey and how did you overcome that? I've had a couple of different ones at different points. Initially in 2017, 2018, when I was working in the corporate game, it was time and it was burnout. Like, when I was in New York in 17, I was pretty regularly doing 80+ hour weeks. When I was back here in 18, they were like 60 to 80 hour weeks. There's just not enough hours in the day. And so that was my biggest struggle was finding pockets of time. And that's why, for the first year, it was on the go. It was in airports, it was on trains, it was in Ubers, writing stuff. And then later putting it on the computer. That was the first challenge while trying to figure it all out. Like, I didn't know what I was doing back then. So it was not only just executing, but it was figuring it out as well. And this is where I really struggle with people who say they don't have time. I've always kind of struggled to relate to that comment because I feel like if I was able to find time back then, most people can.
and I'm not saying, you know, I had it the hardest. People have a lot more shit going on than I did, but I think we all can find more time in the schedule if we really look and if we're willing to sacrifice other things. That was the first big challenge. That actually made me quite sick. That burning the candle. I ended up with really high blood pressure that I still have to manage. So that was the next hurdle, was I had to go off the grid for a few months to get my life back in check from a health perspective. So then it was rebuilding momentum after that. Then things started flying again. And come the middle of 2019, I hit another wall, and this was different. This wasn't like I'd figured out the game for the most part at this point, and was struggling a bit with just working on my own all the time. Like I enjoy being around people, and I enjoy the social aspect of working. And that was honestly one of the biggest things about the corporate game that I enjoyed, was the office environment and kind of the mates that you develop as part of that. And working on your own day in and day out was really isolating to me. I also struggled with the move back from America to Australia. It was weird. A weird time. And anyway, that kind of hit me for six a little bit. I had a couple of months where I was out of the game and just couldn't find motivation to do anything. I wasn't enjoying it. You know, it was a tough period. That was mid 2019. I had some kind of personal stuff going on as well, which was a lot attributed to struggling with the readjustment back to moving here and kind of getting used to life here and stuff. But what pulled me out of that was surrounding myself with good people, right? Particularly Jamie and Chris, who run the Super Affiliate Accelerator with me. Those guys helped out massively. So I acted, once I recognized what the problem was, which took me months to go, it's people. I need people around me. Then I started having conversations with people, and we ended up teaming up to do that. And the rest kind of history there. And then beyond that, I would say the next biggest challenge was January last year. We were like coming towards the end of the beta in SAA. I split up with my partner of 9-10 years. And that was fucking hard as well. Was keeping the business afloat with all that going on in the background, and honestly getting having a professional psychologist to bounce off, and I still do this to this day monthly, just to chat about everything going on, has been one of the best investments ever. That's they're probably the big three for me when I look back. And then it's been more business lessons around handling a big influx of customers and all that kind of shit. But they'd be the big three to answer the questions. And then in terms of how did you overcome that, the biggest balance in overcoming stuff like that is knowing when to push through and knowing when to pull back. And you got to listen to your body. And, you know, if there's just nothing more that you can give, just give yourself a break and give yourself some time off. And then reset. Sorry, I'm just catching up on some of these questions, and then we'll jump into the next slide here. I had fire momentum in the first 3 months, and in the last 3 months, it felt ice cold. I've developed analysis paralysis. I'm trying to figure out the issue, which is like the issue itself. I'm having trouble shaking it in spite of being aware. My inner voice is telling me that it may not be the only reason, and therefore it perpetuates. I think that was Mark that left that comment. What I would recommend is simplify, dude. Simplify and go back to basics. go really back to there's someone doing renovations above me. Apologies for the background noise. Mark, I would simplify down and revisit what's the role of my profile, what's the role of my group, what's the role of my conversations, and what's my offer, and just bring all of that back down to a very simple, these are the things I need to do each day, and that's going to help you rebuild momentum as much as possible. The other thing I would look at is what part of the process do you least enjoy, and work on how can I manage around that, right? So, as I was talking about before, I know a lot of people are kind of get sick of being stuck in the messenger game. So the strategy to combat that is juicing up the offer and juicing up the content. And that's not easy. I'm not saying it's an overnight fix. Like just write better content and just get a better, like that. It's not that fucking easy. But the way to think about it is you got 3 pillars to your business. You've got your content, you've got your sales process, or your marketing, your content / marketing / pre-selling. You've got your sales process, which could be a funnel, could be a conversation, and then you've got your offer. And I'd always kind of thought about them as 3 equal pillars that are holding up the overall business. Where I'm having some clarity around at the moment and over the last few months is that they can start to really carry different weights. And I'm going to talk about this in the Q1 takeaways, but if you want to reduce your dependency on a certain part, you need to have the other parts carry more weight. And the cool thing about putting more weight on your offer and your content and stuff is that they're leveraged, right? You can write a piece of content that you can run as an ad, or you can write a piece of content and put it in your group, or you can film a video and it can go on YouTube, and you do it once and people can see it hundreds and hundreds or thousands and thousands of times. Same with your offer. You can craft it once. You might tweak it and stuff, but you can sell it over and over and over and over and over and over again. So it's got leverage, whereas the convos don't really have leverage. You can have a couple on the go at once, but if you're doing the explaining and the convincing and all that kind of shit in there, it can get tiresome. Some people don't mind it. I know people that really like the conversational aspect of this game, that if they're doing the one-to-one stuff. But it just depends on you as an individual. Okay, so there are a couple of things I'd say is simplify down and look at how can you eliminate or reduce your exposure to the shit that really sucks your energy. Maybe that's outsourcing or changing your process slightly, and jump into the SAA group and ask for feedback on that stuff. But that's what I'd recommend. That'll help you fall back in love with it. When you say Daisy, when you say draw a line in the sand, do you mean by to be direct and getting a commitment, a yes or a no? Yeah. So people will, they indulge time wasters by letting them just keep going and going and going with more questions and questions and questions. You got to have self-respect and value your time and go, look, appreciate you've obviously got questions about all this stuff. If they're questions about the program, that's fine. But if they're just sucking you for free advice, say, look, I'm more than happy to help you, but I can't do it for free, right? And just be honest about it. Just say, if you want to work with me, then that's fine. We can talk about that. But or just remember too, you don't owe a response to anybody. You can just ignore people's messages. That's totally okay. I've gotten really sick from working 100-hour weeks before, but I really like working. It's hard to stop. I can 100% relate to that. I have to stop myself. Otherwise, I would work all day, every day, because I really, really enjoy it. It's my hobby as well as my job, I guess, which is good because that's super rare. Like people, the significant majority of the population will never experience that. I've been truly understanding why only a few become very successful in this game, because it is really tough balancing your life activities with building a business. I'm determined though. Yeah, Daisy, it's not easy. It's honestly not easy. It will take you through, and you can't even really explain to people the kind of roller coaster that they're about to embark on, it's going to be unique for everyone, but it's an absolute ride, highs and lows. Did you figure it out by yourself, or did you have mentors? I didn't have like mentors that I was in constant contact with in the traditional sense of the word mentor, but I definitely learnt off a lot of people along the way. And I'm not one of those marketers who feels the need to rewrite their story to claim that they, went out into the desert and found a mysterious scroll and emerged with all of the secrets and nobody ever helped them out and they got there all on their own. The people that impacted my journey massively were early days 2017, and I'm still good mates with him to this day, is Greg Jeffries. He got me off the ground with blogging, then learned a lot off Spencer Meekum, a dude named Dan Frigo, who still floats around the community from time to time. And then Dave Sharp over at Legendary. And then I worked with a dude named Ben Slater as a mentor. They're probably the biggest in terms of, I guess, people that I've learnt off. And then obviously I've consumed a shit ton of stuff. Studying Dan Kennedy has taught me a ton. Kern, but they're not mentors in the traditional sense of, I was shooting them messages on Voxer every day to get feedback, right? But they're the names that pop into my head. You worked really hard to get where you are now. How long did it take for you to see success? Success is an interesting word and it's hard to kind of quantify, but my path was, I owned a website back in 2011 that I bought off Flipper, and managed that while I was kind of getting started in my job. But I used to work in corporate restructuring, and I got thrust into that in the aftermath of the global financial crisis. And so it was nuts from day one. So that kind of faded off. And then I always kept a pulse on the industry because it interested me. But it wasn't really until 2017 that I jumped back in when I found the ClickFunnels stuff. I started blogging in that first year. I think between the few different things that I did, it pulled about 20K ish. So that was like the first, 12 months. But I spent, a lot of money on education and stuff as well. And then the second year towards so the second year being 2018 when I was back in Australia, towards the August, September was when I started pushing up over, this is a rough estimate from memory, was when I started pushing up past the 10, kind of 12K a month mark. Then in the 6 months that followed that, it went from that to kind of 30K months. Then I had a big win on the KBB launch in 2019, May, which was a 6-figure day. And then it kind of, moved around between that 15 and 30K a month mark for a while. And then we launched SAA in the back half of 2019. And that's really grown it up to the 60 to 100K a month mark relatively consistently. And this is sales, relatively consistently since then. And we've had some big months, we've had some lower months. But it's floated around there. So to bring your question back to it's been a stepping stone over the 4 years. It wasn't zero to hero in 12 months. We've had students come through our programs who've moved way faster than I did. we've had people who've done hundreds of thousands of dollars in their first 12 months from zero. Carl, just one of those setbacks crushes people. You overcame 3. Glad you pulled through, Jacob. Respect, inspiring, and one hell of an excuse killing Jay. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's an interesting road, that's for sure. Are you saying I could create a post and put in the guides with my offer laid out? Yeah, you could do that, Daisy. There's nothing you can't do. You can do anything. You can try and test whatever you want. I can give you tips and recommendations, but there's probably stuff out there. I mean, there's definitely stuff out there that I haven't done. So everything's worth a shot. Okay. Good questions. Good questions. Good questions. All right. Coming back to the slides. So there are your things to consider for Q1. Hopefully that's covered at this point. You've had time to look at that. Real quick, I wanted to recap some of the stuff that we did in Q1, just to give you a look at what's possible. Now, I guess there's two things going on here. One is, these are the big highlights, but then parallel to this is every day being, creating content, selling, doing stuff behind the scenes, dealing with problems that arise of running a business at this size, putting out fires, juggling where we're going versus what we're doing now, all that kind of stuff, right? So keep that in mind. This is like the highlights of the big things we knocked over, but there's a lot going on in the background as well. In January, we rolled out 2 packages in SAA. We rolled out a basic, which was just the course, as opposed to the course and the community and the coaching. And then we also rolled out a deluxe program, which was course, community, coaching, and some one-to-one time with myself. So we expanded the product line there to give people more options that wanted to get involved in the program. So we needed to, structure those up and work out the best way to roll them out and get our affiliates on board with all that kind of stuff. Once we'd done that, and kind of a bit at the same time, we rolled out the Fast Cash Rolodex. That was an idea I'd been sitting on for a little while. It's something that I'd always wanted to do. If anyone can drop a link in the comments for anyone that wants to check it out, it's www.fastcashrolodex.com. If you want to grab it, there's a financing plan that can get started at $175 for today, or there's a one-time payment of $1,000 as well. All the info's over on that page. If anyone could drop the URL in the comments, that would be appreciated. www.fastcashrolodex.com. So that was an idea I had for a while, and there's a couple of reasons for it. One is I come from that finance world where it was like cash. That was that. It didn't matter how fucking complex the situation got. We ended up back talking about cash. So I've always had, these antennas up looking for strategies, and this was kind of a culmination of a number of them that we've used along the way. If you're a complete beginner, it's not for you. It's for someone who's got at least a few hundred people in their audience and something to sell. These strategies are the bridge between the two, right? And the launch went really well. We're 50, 60 customers now. And just to give you an idea of how quickly you can move when you have these moments of clarity and focus and stuff. I basically went from, I knew the idea and nailing the idea to it being live in like 5 days, I think it was. So when you have those moments of clarity, you've got to take advantage of them, and you can really, really double down on that momentum. The cool thing about that, the Rolodex, is it's going to do a couple of things for us as a business. One is it's an awesome entry point for new customers who can come in, they can get a quick win, and it'll really set the scene well for our relationship with them going forward. which is going to build big social proof. Like we've had some stupid results coming out of that already. We had one guy who pulled like 30 grand in 10 days. Another dude who like a couple of days after he jumped in made like 8 grand, countless stories of people pulling out 1,000, 3,000, 2,000. That's just going to momentum's going to build around that. But the other cool piece and one of the big goals that we had, as I mentioned at the start, was building out the product suite for the rebrand. Is this is something that can appeal to anybody in the info game, and it's now an asset, right? I was talking about this with someone yesterday. I was like, it still blows my mind to this day the fact that you can build something like that in a week and it can pay you every single month. Like to generate the kind of income that you can off a course like that, when you compare it to other asset classes, it is just crazy to me. And all it takes is, a week or two of focused work, and you can have this thing that can consistently pull in income. It's fucking awesome. Like it still blows my mind to this day. So we got that live, and then we did a big push on that towards the end of January. We did an intro price at 500, and then we bumped it up to 1,000 and rolled out the financing plan on it. So that was like phase one. Then I wanted a program where we could ascend people who were either in SAA or coming through one of these other programs that we're building out at a higher level, where they'd have the opportunity to work really closely with myself, with my team that we assembled and used to go on and win the 2 Comma Club in Feb, which I haven't even actually written on here, and I probably should have written down as an accomplishment. And so we rolled out the 7-Figure Insiders Elite Coaching Program, and we filled the initial 10 spots, which was about 50 grand in 3 weeks. And we did that with a Google Doc. And I want to end the lessons and takeaways I'm going to talk about. That's not just like a throwaway line of, we use the fucking Google Doc. There's a powerful lesson in that. And then 2 Comma Club happened in Feb as well. And then more recently, we've just rolled out financing plans on SAA and on the Rolodex as well. So a lot of stuff happening in terms of restructuring the business to accommodate the rebrand. And that's a fair chunk of stuff and change and growth to happen in 1 quarter. So the lesson there is, you might sit here and look and go, 3 months has gone so quick, and it has, but you can get so much done, right? We've essentially gone from being like a 1 core product business to now having a mid-ticket product that can service a new market and a whole nother layer on our value ladder. The other part that I haven't added to this is I started doing some more one-to-one consulting as well, that sits then above all of this. So these are, you can build these things really quickly when you have clarity. Okay. And I'm going to talk about that topic towards the end. So a couple of lessons and takeaways. As I said, you can achieve a lot in a quarter with clear focus. Have a plan and have those goals, but be prepared to be flexible. Be flexible in terms of like, things change once you get into the weeds. Like when you go to create a new program, you're going to have an idea of how you think it's going to go. It's never going to end up that way. So you can't like get married to this rigid thing and not be flexible. Otherwise you're going to constantly bump into reasons why you can't push forward and you can't do something. You really got to get good at rolling with the punches. Speed is your biggest friend. As Brett said, money loves speed, 100% true. Your ability to move once that moment of clarity happens. One of the things I've found, and this is a realization I've had recently, is I spend a lot more time thinking about stuff than like dabbling. So I'll let an idea spin around in my head, and then when that light bulb goes off, that's when the speed really starts. The good thing is you can be doing other things while you're thinking about it. So rather than like putting a hold on everything and trying to perfect something over 3 months by building this perfect funnel and slides and all this kind of shit, let the ideas spin around in the back of your head. And then when the clarity comes, start implementing. So just to give you some context, like we've been thinking about, rolling out something like this for a long time, but we just couldn't quite nail the form. And so rather than putting everything on hold and doing nothing until I figured that out, just let it like percolate in the back of your head. And then when the clarity comes, that's when it's time to go. Okay. Does that make sense? There's like two parts. There's like the thinking and the planning and the forming of ideas while you're doing other things. And then when you get the clarity, that's when the speed should really, really kick in. Okay. This lesson here of the offer is probably the most important thing. I don't want to go as far as to say it's absolutely, because I think it's situational. It depends on your brand and all that kind of stuff. But the lesson from the 50K in 3 weeks with a Google Doc, that's not the point's not the Google Doc, right? It's a cool marketing hook, but that's not the point. The point is having a kick-ass offer. And that was another thing we wanted to do coming into the year was level up our offer game. And I think we've done that pretty successfully. That is what does the selling. It's what you're saying to people in terms of your promises and de-risking it and the story behind it and what they're receiving and where you're going to take them and the journey you can take them on and all that kind of stuff. Okay. A second layer lesson there, as I've said, is, stop trying to be perfecting the tech and all the fancy shit. Get it live, right? Once you've got that idea formed and you know how it's going to play out, as to your best of your knowledge, get it live and fix it on the fly. People are really, I think where people stress is they think that if they go live and then everything's not perfect, the customers are going to get pissed off. Aside from the unreasonable few out there who you don't want to be your clients anyway, and you should refund at the earliest red flags, most people are pretty good if you just communicate. Just communicate and over communicate. Frustration in customers, in rational customers. If you're dealing with like highly irrational, unstable people, none of this applies, and just get them out of your life as soon as possible. But if you're dealing with relatively rational people, frustration comes from incongruence in expectations. Okay, so they think this is how something's going to go, and you think this is how it's going to go. So you just keep missing each other, right? You align those with communication and over communication. If you ever feel like you're communicating too much with your customers, don't worry about it. They can just ignore it. It's way better to over communicate than to under communicate. Okay. We had a situation arise last year in August when we did a price rise on the Super Affiliate Accelerator. And we just wrapped up the price rise and we were paying out like 60 or 70 grand in affiliate commissions in one day. And I'd done everything I could to prep. I'd told the bank there's going to be a big hit coming out of the account. I'd told PayPal. I'd told my accountant. I'd fucking prepped everything as best we could, right? I checked with the affiliate software to make sure we were going to be all sweet. And then I processed the first payment on a Saturday morning. And PayPal goes, nope, and locks everything down. And because we were paying out a lot, I had like a personal support person that I could pick up the phone to. And I called them and they're like, look, we know you said, but it's just the system's done and we can't do shit. One reason we've subsequently moved away from them. But you can plan for all of this stuff, but stuff's going to pop up. And people had every right to be pissed off because we always pay out on the 15th and the last. And we couldn't. We physically couldn't pay them. But we just communicated multiple times a day over the next 3, 4, 5 days and got everyone paid out progressively. And you manage the situation. What people do is when shit goes wrong, they go into hiding and they duck for cover. And that just creates fear and uncertainty. Just communicate, and you're gonna and you bring those expectations back together, right? So people were expecting to get paid. This happens. So now my expectation of what's actually possible is down here. If I don't say anything, these are going to go like this and we're going to miss each other. And that's where you end up with big problems. But by us communicating and talking, we end up on the same level. Their expectations come down to our level. and then you're good. Okay, over communicate. On that same day, we had this moron go rogue and start trying to tear us down, and it was just like this complete clusterfuck of madness. And communication gets you through. Okay. Couple of other lessons: test and experiment. We're always trying new things. As you can see, we're testing out some new pricing structures. It's something that goes against what I've done in the past, so I'm interested to see what happens. But just remember too, you can change things pretty quickly. Like if you go down a path and you don't like it, you can do a pretty quick U-turn and go back the other way. And then quality over quantity. This comes back to what we were talking about in terms of like reducing the time in your sales process and improving your content, improving your offers. Focus more on the right people rather than trying to please everybody, and it's going to keep your sanity more in check. Okay. All right, moving on to Q2. If you're kind of a bit all over the place right now, I got a couple of slides for you, and they're going to repeat themselves slightly, so bear with me, but it's important stuff. What you need to get clear on right now is, and this is if you're early days and you're kind of all over the place, because I know we just spoke about Q1 and we're building out all these crazy things. We had the foundation there. Like, we had our products that are selling, we have our traffic flow, we have our sales process, all that kind of shit. So if you're earlier days heading into Q2, this is what I want you to get clear on. It's simple advice, but you'd be shocked how many people don't stick to it. You need to get really clear on what's the core thing or things. And when I say things, I don't mean more than like 2 or 3 that you're going to sell, right? Just stop jumping on every launch. If there's someone you like following and they launch something new every week, you don't have to fucking jump on it. You're giving your audience a bit of seasickness. Focus in on a couple and get to know them really, 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 really well. Okay. It's bringing stability and regularity into your business and into your messaging as well. Focus on one core sales process. So for some of you, that might be Messenger. For some of you, it might be Zoom calls. For some of you, it might be a funnel. I don't care. They all work. Just please pick one and say, this is going to be my process for the next 3 months, and I'm just going to work on making that better and better and better and better and better. Okay. And then narrow in on one place to produce your content. Okay. Until you're in real momentum, don't look at adding other avenues. Just keep it tight and keep it focused, and you can get more adventurous later. Okay. If you're looking at creating something or rolling it out, pick a date now and stick to it as best as you can. Unless there's some catastrophe, pick the date and stick to it. Okay. A couple of other tips. Look at daily goals. I find them to be really powerful. I want to make X offers a day. I want to make X pieces of content a day. I want to have X conversations a day. I need to generate X leads through my funnel per day. This is what's going to stack up over a week and a month and a quarter, as opposed to you just having like one massive overarching goal of like, I'm going to make 20 grand this month, and then that freaking you out and you're not getting anything done. Okay. So these 3 core things, and then take that down to another layer and go, okay, in terms of implementation, what does this look like? All right. And then set aside time to read and to learn and do all that kind of stuff. But you need to do it in a curated way so that the reading and the learning and the being creative doesn't distract you from that. And if you don't have that level of self-control where, you consume content and you come up with ideas, if you're the type of person who has an idea and then they go off on a tangent, maybe cool the jets on this stuff for a little while until you've got the willpower and the kind of fortitude to not let it distract you and pull you off in a million different directions. Okay. Who's got uncertainty
who's got uncertainty about where they're heading in the next 3 months? What are your concerns? What are your questions? Fire them away. I'm here to field them. This is a good opportunity. What have I got here? The other thing to think about as you're looking ahead to the next quarter is what lessons can you take away from Q1, right? So we did this exercise back up here where we mapped out things to consider. What are the lessons and takeaways from that you can carry with you into Q2 so that you don't repeat mistakes, right? How can you become really conscious of what worked and what didn't work so that you can cull that shit and narrow in on the good stuff, right? So that's where paying attention to what went well and what didn't go well. So you can cull or tweak the stuff that didn't go well, right? So don't neglect the lessons from Q1 and just like launch into a new month, okay? And again, being conscious of what negative influences around you are sucking your energy and your time. People, habits, environments, okay? And look at how can you either eliminate them or minimize your exposure to them, okay? And you can figure out what those are by reflecting on Q1 and did they positively or negatively contribute to your happiness and your goals, okay? To bring this to a head, if you're completely spinning your wheels right now and you're lost, right, I want you to focus down on those one core thing in each bucket, a product, a method, and a platform, okay? And I want you to not deviate in any way for the next 3 months, okay? Figure out what those daily tasks are and make them as much of a routine as brushing your teeth, okay? If you can get this and then you apply a mindset of, if I don't make a sale this week, this month, this quarter, I'm fine with it. This quarter is about developing the habits and the routine that are going to set me up for the next 6 months, 12 months, 5 years. Okay. If you do these first things in 3 months' time, I promise you will be a completely different person. Right. Your view of how all this game works will change. Your view of how you look at yourself will change. The view of how other people look at you will change. Because even 3 months of consistent implementation, right, will separate you from so many people, okay? And then 80-20 is your friend, apply it. And that ties back to what I was saying here in terms of doubling down on what works and culling what didn't, right, or tweaking, okay? And this is where you need to start investing in stuff. Like once you've got that initial, so people invest for two different reasons. Early days, people buy stuff looking for the fucking holy grail that's going to solve all of their problems, that's going to give them something to promote, it's going to give them a sales process, it's going to show them how to get leads in this game. Once that foundation is set, like I'm talking about here, you start looking at what do I need to tweak and change in order to make this better. And that's where you start making more strategic and targeted investments to improve specific components of your business. Okay. You want to get to that point quickly so that you can start going, all right, I need to figure out a better way to sell. I need to figure out a way to improve my offer. I need to work on my headspace. I need to figure out how to improve my content. I need more lead flow. I need to blah, 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 right? But you can start making targeted investments rather than constantly like trying to throw the Hail Mary to win the game. There's 2 questions that have come through. Then I'm going to jump into this kind of discussion and then we can wrap up with any more questions. Someone said, how did you grow your group quickly? I wouldn't say that I have. I've been running this group since 2018. So 3 years. So it's not been quickly. And you don't necessarily want quick growth. What you do want to get to is a point there's two phases with a Facebook group. There's an initial phase where you're getting it to 400, 500, 600 members, where you need to be really hustling to get what I call external growth. So that's bringing people over from your profile. It's bringing people over from your email lists. It's running ads if that's what you want to do. It's messaging people that you're having conversations with and saying, hey, I've started a group. Do you want to join? It's literally bootstrapping your way to those first 400, 500, 600, 700 members. Then complementing that with getting engagement up will kickstart what I call internal growth, which is where Facebook's platform starts sending you leads. So the first focus is getting that initial critical mass and getting those people engaged. Focus two on you want quality over quantity. Like even now we've got a lot of people who aren't engaged because we've been here for so long. And we really need to cull that down. It's size in this case is not as critical as how targeted the people are and how engaged they are. McCool, when choosing between promoting multiple awesome products, what's the best way to choose? Which one can you hand on heart promote as relentlessly as possible and you're excited to sell? That's going to come in two layers. One, you know it and you love it. And two, the compensation is lucrative enough to actually get you excited. Right? That second one's going to sound selfish, but that's the reality of it. Like, you're in this for business. Just because a product, even if there's an amazing product out there, if it pays you 50 cents, there's no point, because you're not going to be able to hang around in business long enough to work with anybody who buys it from you. So it needs to have both layers. It's got to be one that you love and excites you, and you know it's going to deliver, and you can really talk to the pains of the people who need it, and it's also lucrative for you. Hopefully that helps. Okay, real quick on this topic. This is something I had some clarity on, well, for want of a better word, have had some light bulb moments around recently. Whenever I'm in a kind of a funk and things aren't jiving the way that I want them to, I've always thought, if I can just have some time to focus, then I'll find my clarity. What I'm realizing more and more is it's actually the other way around. I'm incredibly focused when I've got that clarity around, like we were talking about before, with letting it kind of brew in the back of your head, as someone said in the comments. And then the relentless focus comes with just that like clear tunnel vision of where everything is heading. So I think the advice here, and what I'm trying to do myself too, is in those moments where things aren't going that well, rather than trying to force the focus to figure out the path, it's taking a step back and just letting it brew away until that clarity comes. Give it some attention. Don't let it just sit on the shelf forever. But the focus will come when you're fully clear of mind. And it's like a rush. Like, it's when you've got that clarity, focus isn't even a thing you need to worry about, because you're so pumped and just like all you want to do is go and get that stuff done. So rather than trying to, get pissed off at people for distracting you, and I need my focused work time, I would encourage you to actually take a step back and go, right, I need to just think about the overall plan and kind of where we're going and get real clarity on that. And that's not something that just happens, I think, from like a sit down, write it out. It's something that needs to brew and evolve and develop over time, because there's so many variables to it. And then when it clicks, and you would have all experienced this, like, it's when there's that excitement of, fuck, this is it. Like, I've got it. I've figured it out. When that rush comes, it's game on, and you have to take advantage of those windows and just fucking get it done. This happened to me like last week.
I'd been thinking about a way that I could give some of our students a bit of an edge, and it had been playing around in my head honestly for probably 4 weeks, and then I had the idea, and in the next 24 hours we got it all done, which included like 5 hours of sleep, because it was that moment of clarity came, and that's the time to get it done. Okay, hopefully it's an interesting concept, and it's not going to work for everybody, but for me, rather than me trying to force the focus and just sitting at my computer getting pissed off at I can't figure this new thing out that I'm trying to do, it's let it, brew away, and then when it clicks, push everything else aside, and that's when you go and the focus will come. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I don't think I've explained that particularly well, but I think there's something in there. Cool. So with all that said, hopefully there's something in there that sheds some light on helping you reflect on Q1. There was a couple of stories and stuff in there. Hopefully that, gives you some guidance in terms of where you're going, and me sharing those couple of hurdles and stuff. It's not an easy road, and there's going to be challenges. Hopefully that gives you some clarity in terms of what to be thinking about heading into Q2. And for the folks who are completely stuck and lost, that plan should help you, right? If there's anyone watching that wants to look at potentially working together some more, that thinks myself and my team can help, you can drop me a note and I'll have a quick chat, and I'll recommend something to you. But that's up to you if you want to reach out or not. Aside from that, happy to field any questions before we wrap up, if anyone's got any legacy ones that they haven't dropped yet. Cold tea. Yeah, that's spot on, Carl. Anything else, folks? Anything at all? Awesome. Cool. Well, glad some of you got something out of that, and I will wrap it up, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. If you guys want me to do more lives and trainings like this, just let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to squeeze them into the schedule. Okay? Hope everyone has a great day, and I'll talk to you all soon. Cheers.